Hey guys, what's going on? It's Torian here, and today I just want to make a brief, or somewhat brief, SWG Restoration profession tier list for PvP as of the current patch in February of 2025. So the Expanding Horizons patch has been out for about 2 months now, um, about a month and a half. And things are starting to settle. The jewelry sets are starting to see a lot of play, a lot of different ones, and there's a lot of different variety in what's considered good and what's not. Today I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I'm just going to give you a brief breakdown of where I think things stand, just to give you an idea, because I know there's a lot of people coming in to the server right now, and they may or may not know what to play. So hopefully I can kind of guide you on what I think as someone who's been playing this game for a while. Think what I think is a good choice in the current patch for PvP. So I'll start off with a disclaimer. I did this in my last tier list, which was almost a year ago, but Jedi, I'm just gonna put them in their own category. I'm not even really gonna consider them. They're just designed to be better than everything. And while people might say that they're not, and more often than not they are, however, there are massive drawbacks. It just does not feel right to put them in a normal tier list, so I'm literally just going to put them in a category of their own up here, and then the rest of this tier list will be sort of the actual tier list. So, meta, these are the things that are very good that you can't really get enough of. Things that I would consider everyone, maybe delve into a little bit. They bring a lot of things to the table, primarily in group PvP, which is of course my focus, and I think it's just the main focus of PvP here. But the meta professions are really, really strong, obviously. So these are the strongest of the strongest. I'll get right into them right now. The first one I want to talk about is kind of one that everyone's been talking about, which is squad leader. But this is the icon for squad leader. Squad leader is obviously insanely strong now. Probably got the biggest change of any of the professions from what they were pre-expanding horizons. Now a lot of their auras have been reworked. They've got some more powerful cooldowns through toughen. High yield is a shorter cooldown. They have charge. They have retreat, which is like scatter from NGE. They have all their bombs. The Hellfire set is obviously the big thing that everyone sees. They see the big, artillery strikes and stuff, and the big damage. Obviously, SL is extremely meta, and probably the strongest thing about them, in my opinion, is that they no longer have to be the leader of their group to use their abilities. So you can actually run. They still need to be in a group, but you can run multiple of them in a group now and still use all their stuff without having to do all the sketchy stuff of passing leader around and stuff. So on top of doing massive damage, you can just bring multiple of them to just make endless opportunities out of their different utility. So squad leader, definitely a very, very meta profession. Another one we're going to put up here is ranger. I think ranger is very good. Some people may disagree. I think ranger is extremely meta, particularly the trapper set with ranger. Trapper ranger is basically a mix of NGE bounty hunter and NGE spy. So it's really, really powerful as sort of a playmaker, someone that's got that dog in him. He can kind of just kamikaze into a fight, drop dyers, and just totally cause chaos and carnage in a fight. Not everyone's sold on this, but in my opinion, I think that Ranger, particularly Trapper Ranger, is the future of SWG group PvP, so I definitely would consider it meta. Before I continue, by the way, I would like to put a little disclaimer. The order of which these professions are in this tier list does not matter. So, for example, if I put Ranger here, I'm not trying to say that Ranger is better than Squad Leader. I just, instead of numbering them each individually, I'd rather just put them in categories. I think that's a little better. So, next, the next profession I'm probably gonna put up here is Bounty Hunter. I think Bounty Hunter is just insanely strong. I think shields are probably the best defensive cooldown in the game. Torso shot is extremely powerful. It's one of the best debuffs in the game for sure. Duelist stance is super strong. You can pair Bounty Hunter with melee or ranged. It has amazing stats. The biggest nerf to Bounty Hunter, I guess, is just that it's more annoying to level up now that it's all combat XP, which doesn't really matter for PvP. And then the other notable thing is that they no longer have spray shot, so they lose an AoE. But they gain a whole bunch of other stuff. So Bounty Hunter, very, very powerful. And the Dread Strike debuff from the Duelist set is very powerful. One of the best debuffs in the game. It's a massive heal cut and reduces damage. For taking down a target, it is perhaps one of the best debuffs you can have in a fight. So Bounty Hunter, very, very strong. What's next though I want to talk about? We'll talk about Commando. So Commando, for those of you that have been following my channel for a long time, you know that Commando has had a very, very, very powerful history on this server. Commando still is amazing in team fights. However, I do not think it is king like it was before for many, many patches. I do think that Commando now is much more tame than it used to be. So I'm going to put it in the competitive tier. I think both the Juggernaut and the Rampart sets are very good. I know some people disagree. Rampart is extremely tanky with when they kneel down, they can stack dots and riddle armors and do a whole lot of stuff with their heavy weapons. And then alternatively, the Juggernaut set, you just get tons of armor when you're snared, which in team fights you often are. And the cluster bombs, when they go off, they go crazy. So Commando, still, I want to put it here. They do have some weaknesses. Losing the AoE debuffs on their Flamer was kind of a pretty big nerf. What else? Their AoEs aren't nearly as powerful. I mean, they're still pretty powerful, but not quite like they used to be. And then grenades are obviously still pretty slow and a bit inaccurate. You need to stack some thrown weapon accuracy, which can be kind of annoying. But Mando, very, very amazing choice. Still extremely tanky. Great AoE damage, just all around super versatile. Definitely putting it in the competitive tier. Next, I'm going to talk about... Let's talk about Doc. Oh yeah, Doctor is going in meta tier. The first responder set from Doctor is insanely strong. You basically never run out of mind if you're doing this properly. If you're doing like a Master Medic, a Master Doctor build, you can basically never go out of mind. It's just an amazing healer. You need to have it. I can't imagine group PvPing without a proper Master Doc build with the first responder set. It's just, yeah, the Doc is meta, 100% super meta. I will say that there are Doc builds that are less meta, but kind of more unique, like the Master Fencer, Master Doctor build, where you're like sprinting around and you're very hard to catch, you're very slippery. That's a cool build. There's like a Master CH, Master Doc build. I've seen even like a hybrid, like a sharpshooter Doctor build with first responder set. I've seen a few things with Doctor, but just Doctor with a first responder set in general is just extremely, extremely strong, and I would say a total necessity in group PvP. Next, I want to talk about Carboneer. Put Carboneer in the competitive tier. Rapid Fire is now an offensive cooldown that gives you attack speed, so that's really cool. They also get AoE knockdown, and knockdown, for those of you that don't know, has been reworked on the server. There's no more knockdown recovery. Knockdown, you are knocked down for a flat 3 seconds, and so Carbine having a big AoE knockdown in a system like that is extremely strong. They've obviously got amazing AoEs and are just a very versatile ranged profession. You can kind of pair Carbine with just about anything, and you know, it'll work out. Next, Combat Medic. I'm actually going to put Combat Medic as sort of as a primary profession. I might actually put it in off meta. I actually don't think Combat Medic is that good right now in PvP. I mean, it's obviously still fine for like bounty hunting people and stuff, but I'm not really considering that when I think about most PvP in this game. I mean, like the Doom set, the Plague Spreader set's not bad. The debuffs are still great. It's a bit mine inefficient. The main reason you would want to go Combat Medic right now is if you're pairing it with Doctor and you were doing a medic, like a Master Medic, Master Doc, Master CM full healer build, which is, in my opinion, the best healer build in the game and an extremely powerful build. But yeah, I think CM as sort of a primary profession or something you build around and get jewelry for and whatnot. I would say it's a bit off meta. Not quite unviable. Definitely not unviable, but definitely off meta for sure. Next, let's see. Smuggler. I'll put Smuggler in competitive. What's to say about Smuggler? Heal cut's obviously really strong. They're compatible with melee or ranged. They do tons of damage now because their crits do loads of extra damage. They deal about, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, someone in the comments if I misrepresent this, but I believe it's 25% more damage when they score critical strikes. So stacking crit on a Smuggler is really strong, very high DPS. Last Ditch got reworked to increase crit damage by a lot, and sort of an AoE cone. However, it applies a debuff to yourself. So it's, high risk, high reward. Smuggler in general is just a very high risk, high reward, high damage, but a bit squishy. However, it's still, obviously, you've got like Conk Shot, Reckless Shot, Overwhelming Shot. You've got just great utility and great damage. Smuggler, very competitive. Let's see. Next, I want to do Pistolier. So Pistolier has some cool stuff. The quick draw procs are awesome. The jewelry's okay. Pistolier is kind of in the same place it's always been, where it's a really strong supplementary profession, but not a very strong primary profession. I'm gonna put it in the viable tier. Again, quick draw procs are awesome. The jewelry set is okay, but yeah, it's just kind of more of a supplementary profession in general, but still, it's fantastic to pair with different things. Um, can never go wrong with dipping into Pistolier. Some of the debuffs, such as Warning Shot, got nerfed a little bit. Stopping Shot is obviously still really strong, so that's great. Another downside of Pistolier is that you have to be Master Pistolier for Quick Draw, which kind of sucks, because that was a lot of the damage and a lot of the the oomph that came from going Pistolier. So that kind of sucks. I wouldn't quite say they're off meta because they are an amazing supplementary profession. So I'm going to have to put them in the viable tier for sure. Terraskasi. TKM, it's not that bad. I mean, it used to be really strong because of how tanky it was. But now that the defensives on all the different melee have been reworked, and their jewelry set's okay, I'm going to have to put TKM in off meta. I don't want to say it's unviable, but it's definitely off meta. You could pair TKM with like a pikeman or something, or maybe a swordsman and do okay. I just don't think it's particularly good. The jewelry set's not great. Yeah, it's more of a supplementary thing if you just wanted to be a super tanky guy, but it doesn't really provide much other than just more avoidance, which, these other professions now, the other melee professions, they have other defensive stuff that's really good too. So that kind of sucks. So yeah, I'll put TKM in off meta for now. Next, I will talk about Creature Handler. Creature Handler, I'm gonna probably put in viable. It's definitely viable. I wouldn't say it's competitive or like meta. By no means like meta, but definitely viable. Flank is obviously still a very strong debuff. It always has been. And the Creature Handler jewelry set actually, for some reason, is insanely tanky. It gives you a shit ton of block chance, which is okay, cool. So Creature Handler is actually one of the tankiest professions right now. However, in group PvP, they do kind of always have the thing that they've struggled with, which is their pets just die to AoEs. But again, Flank is a fantastic debuff, one of the best debuffs in the game, especially now that there's like smuggler crit stuff. Flank is perhaps one of the best debuffs just at all. Pets are decent for like sticking onto healers and things like that and applying pressure in that way, but definitely think it's just viable and not necessarily competitive or meta. Definitely not off meta though, because there's a place for creature handlers in group PvP. Next I'll put Stu Lancer or Pikeman. Pikeman / Lancer I would say is competitive. Probably the best group PvP melee spec. The AoE knockdown is obviously insane. AoE intimidates just always bonkers. I think it's like 30-35% damage now, which is just insanely strong. Just being able to debuff everyone's damage by that much all around you, it's wild. They have a really strong defensive ability, Perception, which gives a ton of block chance and block value. So now that block is in the game and there's things like Verbok and like block foods and all these other stats, like Pikeman with the block stuff is really, really powerful. It's really tanky. Definitely, in my opinion, the best, like I said, of the melee professions right now, in my opinion. So that's really cool. Next, we've got Swordsman. We'll do Swordsman. Or Berserker. Swordsman, I would say, is probably viable. Definitely not off meta by any means. It does crazy damage. Advanced armor break is amazing. However, that is kind of all it does. I mean, it's got big hits, obviously. I mean, it's always had big hits, but the problem with Berserker slash swordsman, whatever you want to call it. It's just, yeah, they're not particularly tanky, and they don't really do much other than hit hard and apply armor break. For armor break, obviously the advanced armor break is insanely strong. You definitely want to have that debuff, but not necessarily the most, needed thing all the time, because besides armor break, they don't really do much. It's great to have, but it's not make or break. So I would say swordsman is definitely in the viable tier, definitely around here with these guys. Next, what do I want to do next? Fencer, I'll do fencer and viable as well. And group PvP, Fencer's kind of, I mean, it's not bad. They've got cones, which is cool. The Razor Walt set does a lot of damage. It's not been nerfed. It procs when you apply Razor Waltz, a stack of Razor Waltz, it instantly procs damage. So when your set is up and you're just blasting, it does crazy DPS, really high DPS melee profession. The biggest issue with it is that it doesn't really have any defensive abilities of its own. It's really only main defensive is that like it has some extra healing, and then sprint is okay, but sprint falls off once you attack someone. So it's a bit squishier. But again, Razor Waltz does tons of damage, so you could do something like a Fencer Ranger and just kind of pop out of stealth and boom, 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 hit people super hard. If you paired it with something that was a little more tanky, like, maybe a Bounty Hunter or maybe TKM or just something to not, let you get insta-gibbed, Fencer could probably pump out some crazy damage in a group setting. And then lastly is Sniper or Rifleman. I want to say that it's competitive. If there was a tier between competitive and viable, I would probably put it there, but I'm probably leaning more towards just putting it in the competitive tier for now. The reason for that is the debuff from Sniper Shot is really, really strong. You can sit back and just, if you can get some Sniper Shots off, you're pumping tons of damage. Some of the biggest hits in the entire game come from Sniper. Amazing burst, single target damage, as well as, the Sniper Shot debuff. It does kind of struggle with the fact that we are entering into more of a mobility meta, in my opinion. Some people might disagree with this, but in my opinion, we're entering into a mobility meta where things like dyers and moving around and having constant uptime on things like retreat and other stuff is like super important. So Rifleman having to be prone all the time is kind of rough, but you can definitely make it work with proper positioning. So I want to say that Rifleman is definitely or Sniper is definitely in the competitive tier. So a few notes now that all these are on here. Nothing is unviable, which is cool. I don't really think anything's unviable. The closest thing I could say to being unviable is maybe Terrace Kasi, but I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt and say that it's off meta. As far as jewelry sets go, most of these professions, their jewelry sets reflect where they are on this list. I mean, Razor Waltz is obviously really, really strong, but the Fencer profession's kind of whatever, so that's why I kind of put it here. The Creature Handler set's obviously insanely tanky, so that's a good thing to note, but it's not up here at all. So yeah, I think this is pretty much how I feel right now personally. Other people may disagree, they may feel other ways, but this is kind of how I'm feeling about the game right now. Again, the placement of where each of these professions are on this list, as far as like the order, it does not reflect exactly how like the order one for one of what I think they are. So I don't think that BH is the best, Rangers is second best, Squad Leader is the third best, and so on and so forth. I just think that putting them in these categories is very appropriate. The only thing I would potentially move around, like I said, besides TKM being potentially unviable, would be maybe moving Carboneer to meta, because you can't retreat through Suppressive Fire, which is pretty strong. But yeah, I think this is pretty accurate to the current state of things. Again, this is just my opinion, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Don't be afraid to ask. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.